Welcome back to CKLA Chats. I am DLC Foster-Yankey, and in this video, I'll be talking about Lesson 9, Living Character Map in the 5th grade Unit 7, Midsummer Night's Dream. Okay, so we have 6 components that Lesson 9 is divided into to make up the 90-minute ELA block, and we'll talk more about each of those throughout the video. The first component is a warm-up living character map for 10 minutes. So for this component, the teacher is going to divide up the classroom, designating one part as Athens and another part as the forest. A student is going to stand in each place with the respective location card, which can be found in the digital components. Next, the teacher is going to distribute the character cards and have students stand in a row in neutral territory and ask the class where characters should be the first time we see them in the play. So they're trying to determine if these characters should be in Athens or in the forest at the beginning of the play. Next, the teacher is going to distribute the Arrow of Love cards and ask for students to stand between the students holding the young Athenians character cards to show who loves whom. The teacher is going to ensure that students understand the difference between Hermia and Helena due to confusion as a result of similar names. And if possible, the teacher will post the character card sentences on the board, since who loves whom changes quickly in the next few scenes. Students will record this diagram in their love tracker in the front of their activity books and label it Act 1, Scene 1. So really just establishing who is in love with whom at the beginning of the play, because it will get confusing as they continue to read. To continue the warm-up, the teacher is going to pose some discussion questions, which can be found on the screen here. After discussing the first question, they'll have students holding the character cards walk to the forest location. Then students will discuss the second question, and the students holding the character cards will follow the directions. The actors put their character cards down where they are so someone else can pick them up after the reading. Next, I'll move on to a summary of Act 2, Scene 2 for 10 minutes. So students will turn to the summary of Act 2, Scene 2 in the reader and read the paragraph silently to themselves. Then the teacher will pose the discussion questions found on the screen here. Then they'll go back to the revised living character map for 10 minutes. New actors will pick up the Hermia, Helena, Lysander, Demetrius, and Puck character cards, and the teacher will collect the rest of the cards. 2 students get flower cards, and the audience directs them as to where to stand at the beginning of the action and as the action proceeds. If students aren't sure where the flowers go, the teacher will guide them back to the summary to see that both flowers should start near Puck. Then one flower should go to Oberon. Students raise their hands to direct the actors step by step through the action from the summary they just read, and the teacher has them read quotes from the text to support the action. Okay. So then 4 students will take the Arrow of Love cards, and the class will revise the love sentence and copy it in the love tracker, labeling it Act 2, Scene 2. Okay. So basically they should know at this point that because of the flower that Puck gives the characters, the who loves whom has gotten all jumbled up. Okay. And the arrows kind of explain that. Okay, next I'll move on to Shakespeare's Sentences for 20 minutes. For this component, the teacher will talk about how Shakespeare often changed the placement of subject and verb to verb and subject in his sentences. Then they'll pose the discussion question at the top of the screen. When you write a sentence, do you usually place the subject before or after the verb? So after discussing that, they'll project the example sentence or put it on the board. And before revealing the rewritten versions, the teacher will invite students to adjust them by placing the subject before the verb. The teacher will go on to talk about how sometimes Shakespeare left out words and then project examples or put them on the board. Again, inviting students to adjust the examples before revealing the rewritten versions of them. The teacher poses a discussion question and then will direct students to activity page 9.1. Review the instructions, which say to rewrite these sentences so that the subjects precede the verbs. Students will work in pairs to rewrite sentences from Act 2, Scene 2 as more typical sentences. While they are doing that, the teacher will check for understanding by circulating and reviewing student sentences. If necessary, reviewing the placement of subjects and verbs with struggling students. Okay. Then they'll move on to read a reading excerpt of Act 2, Scene 2. For this, students will look at pages 54 to 56 of their readers and underline the act and the scene, then identify whether the scene is in verse or prose and label it accordingly. The teacher will point out to students that although the scene is in verse, it is not in iambic pentameter. The class will read the first part of the excerpt, Puck's monologue, with each student reading one sentence. The teacher will remind students that the ends of sentences are marked by periods, question marks, or exclamation points, and points out that the end of a sentence may not be the end of the line, and that while a line may start with a capital letter, it may not be the beginning of a sentence. And as usual, students will underline words and phrases that they do not understand. As a check for understanding, the teacher will circulate to discuss unknown words and phrases, checking in with students who have not underlined words and phrases to discuss common misunderstandings. Once they're done reading, the teacher will pose the discussion questions on the screen here. In preparation for reading the next part of Act 2, Scene 2, the teacher will divide the class into 3 groups. Each group is assigned a character, either Demetrius, Helena, or Lysander. And the class will read through the excerpt to page 62, with each group reading its character orally. Alternately, the teacher could divide the class into groups of 3 to read the rest of the scene, with each student within a group taking a character. Students are encouraged to have fun reading with expression, and when they have finished, they'll complete activity page 9.2 in pairs. So the directions for 9.2. Once students turn there, the teacher will tell them that this exercise will give them practice answering the key questions, this time in reference to the scene they just read. So they will complete that in pairs, or alternately, the class could answer the questions about the first passage together, followed by students working in pairs to answer the questions about the next 2 passages. Once they're done, the class will review the answers together, and the teacher will ensure students understand that Helena thinks Lysander is making fun of her by pretending to be in love with her. But Lysander really believes himself to be in love with Helena. Right. And that concludes the video for lesson 9. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.